Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Leadership Book of the Month. I'm Kelly Byrnes, and I am very excited to welcome you this month. Thank you for those joining live, and to anybody that is joining by watching the video later. Please meet Luis Velasquez. He is the author of this month's book, Ordinary Resilience. So we will dive in just a moment. And Bret, good to see you.
Good
Welcome
to see
back.
you. It's been a couple months. So
Yeah.
between us taking kind of a summer sabbatical and a few of the things that we did that pulled us away, kind of good to be back reading again and great to reconnect.
Yes. And before you do your introduction, I want to take a moment to thank our colleague, Dave Lingerfeld. We send love and best wishes to. He is bowing out of our little panel here for going forward because he is in a PhD or a doctorate program. And, those things get kind of full and busy, and he has a lot of other things to read, as Louise would know for sure. Right. So we wish Dave well, and we thank him for the couple of years that he was with us as part of this journey, and we wish him well for the next year. So Louise, I have a formal introduction of you, a big long one, but if you want to do a quick introduction, and then Bret, I'll invite you to do it the same. And if you want to do a brief little update, you're welcome to. So Louise,
Sure.
if you want to do one. What would you like our viewers to know about you, Louise?
Well, let's see. I am right now I am a executive coach in Silicon Valley. I coach. I called people that are brilliant and misunderstood, and we can go into that for a little longer. I am originally from Guatemala, Central America. I came to the States via a scholarship to study agriculture, and then I fall in love with science. I became a scientist and then a professor, and it's been a great ride. And now I am an executive coach, and I love it.
Yes, yay! And that's how we know each other, is through the executive coaching circles.
That is
So
correct.
I'm so excited to get to talk with you about this book in just a couple minutes. Bret, you want to do an intro for everybody and then give a quick update?
Sure. Yep. Kelly and I came to know each other through our Rockhurst ties when I was going through my MBA, and Kelly was a professor and I was a student, probably late in life in my 50s, going through my graduate work, and better having done that. So that was fantastic. But came to know Kelly through that time. I held some executive level positions here for quite some time within the sales leadership, and then currently now in international agribusiness, working with all kinds of different things, mostly in the food service channel, but really get the joy and the privilege to work with a lot of people and brands and names that many of you would know, providing value to them primarily in the protein space. And then an avid reader, which is kind of the connection that Kelly and I share. So most of those books are around personal development, leadership, conversation, just developing good habits. And as we'll get into it, I'm sure through the call or through the conversation today, just overall the value of reading. It kind of becomes a trademark or some type of a promotional thing where, reading, you bring that up in conversation, and all the people, so some people say, what book are you reading? And before you know it, that becomes the conversation of the afternoon. So, Kelly and I have, I don't know how many books, this is 30 plus, I think it is, different podcasts that are posted on the web and on LinkedIn and things like that. So just really excited to be here. And, not only is there a discipline and obviously having a deadline to be prepared for, so you read the book, but you usually get one or two other books in there during the month as well, just whether those are more casual, more entertainment. But these personal development books certainly give you a reason to think and a reason to pause, whether you're reflecting on yourself or maybe you're somebody that you know or potentially your team. So darn glad to be here. Let's just leave it at that.
Yay. Awesome. Darn glad to have you both here. And the purpose of these conversations is to help inspire leaders to continue their development journey. So we often say that we want to inspire leaders of tomorrow to invest in themselves today. So that's the whole purpose of this. And we're kind of an informal bunch. So we'll just proceed and see where our conversation takes us. The reason I usually do start with why I picked this book or why we picked this book. So the reason we picked this one is resilience is a hot topic leaders right now, and with leaders talking about burnout and all the changes in the market and all of these things and career changes and life changes. So resilience is a hot topic, but also because Luis and I know each other through our work circles, I wanted to read his book and see what his take would be on this subject that's been near and dear to my heart and important to me for many, many years. So I'm very excited to get to talk with him. And this book has not even been out for 2 months. It came out at the end of June. So we are excited and honored to have you join us for this conversation. Okay, so let's dive in. Oh no, let me give a little bit more of a background about Luis. So started his own consulting firm, Velasquez Coaching, and I'm going to share a banner so you all can learn more about him. There you go. And if you do have a comment or a question for Luis or us, feel free to post that on LinkedIn, and I'll remember to check. And if I forget along the way, we will get an answer for you and post it afterwards. But welcome and thank you to anybody that is watching. Okay, what else about Luis? So his coaching company, as he mentioned, is in Silicon Valley. And he has global experience, but they serve businesses that are established, startups, and nonprofits. They build trust and help clients make lasting improvements in their people's performance and realize the most important goals. He also is a facilitator at Stanford's Graduate School of Business. He teaches what do you call the course? The touchy-feely course?
It is called, people call it as a touchy-feely, but the real name is interpersonal dynamics.
Interpersonal dynamics, so important. And he helps mid-level managers to C-suite around the world learn, adapt, and grow and thrive by helping them to reframe their challenges and take the most beneficial next step, which we will talk about. So also when we select books, we prefer to have them by people that have real business experience and not only from academics. And so Luis certainly checks all those boxes as well. So he has worked as an executive in management consulting, and he has extensive global experience, which is unique for most of the authors that we've worked with and chosen so far. Middle East, Africa, Saudi Arabia, those are the ones I came across. Yeah. So amazing. Yeah, thank you so much. He's a contributor to Harvard Business Review and Fast Company, so you may recognize his name from those places. And he also was featured in one of our other books. So a few years ago, this was one of our books, The Long Game by Dory Clark. So that's on our list, and the link is on the website. So we always are amazed, aren't we, Brett, at the connection of all of the books and the authors. And
yeah, there were multiple titles that Luis mentioned in his book that we had covered, or even some that I'd read that we hadn't covered as a group. But we always make the comment that how well read the authors are of other people's work, and obviously very generous in citing those works. I'm sure that helps promote one another. But yeah, it's definitely it's a large audience, but it's a relatively small group of subject matter experts.
Yeah. And as Luis mentioned, he had a career in science. He has an MBA in organization leadership and a PhD in botany and plant pathology from Michigan State. He also is Marshall Goldsmith stakeholder-centered coaching certification. And as you know, that I wrote the workbook for him, for Marshall Goldsmith's The Earned Life. So another tie-in to us in our program here, our Leadership Book of the Month. One of my favorite things about you is that you just decided to run one day, and then you became a runner. You said, oh, I just ran up to 5 miles, and now you've run more than 100 marathons and ultra marathons, and just amazing. So the running has been physical fitness for you, but also mental, and ties into the resilience as well. So just fantastic. And I loved your first ultra marathon. That was kind of an accident that you shared in the book too. Okay, and the other big thing is that he transformed his life after a brain tumor and redefined what it means to thrive. So in the book, he shares the ordinaries of resilience, rethinking how effective leaders adapt and thrive. So he shares his experience from the brain tumor and forward, and tying in from before that too, life experience prior to that. But talking about resilience, you've been through things also, and studied it and all of that. So sharing from life experience and the experience of leaders that he's coached, and brings all of those insights into a framework that is in this book. One of my favorite things about the book is that you didn't make it academic or seem impossible to figure out. So there's tips all throughout the whole thing about how to be resilient. Before we go into all of those, though, I am curious about the people that you like to work with, that you're really skilled with the brilliant, but you don't say difficult. I forgot what word you
Brilliant,
said.
Brilliant, but misunderstood.
Understood, yes. So why do you choose to work with that group?
I was coaching at a big corporation a while ago, and I got the chance to give feedback to a leader. And this in the, I don't know, maybe 40 minutes of one session that I had with him, in which I had to give him some level of feedback about, how he was being perceived. He just let me talk for maybe 2 minutes. He was all over the place. He was blaming people. He was and then I decided, and I said to him, can I share my experience with you? And he said, yeah, and I said, I'm experiencing you disrespectful, off-putting, and I was trying to use the same words that the people in the 360 used. And I said, I feel that I'm not being, hurt. I feel that you're dismissing what I'm saying, what I'm doing, what we're doing here. And he stood up and he said, Luis, you have disrespected me, and this conversation is over. And he left. And I was left there like, oh my gosh, what did I do? 2 days later, I got an email from the HR department of the organization, informing me that they were transferring all the coaching engagements that I had at the moment to somebody else, and they were firing me. But they felt that I had truly disrespected this leader, because that's what he told the HR department.
Mm-hmm.
And oh my God, my world just crumbled. I started like, what am I doing? What's going on? What did I do wrong? And then, if you remember, Kelly, you and I met David Peterson.
Right.
Yeah. So at that time, David Peterson and I was so blessed by, he was, mentoring me. And then I told him this situation. And he said, Luis, you need to learn to work with these people, because there is a lot of them around, and you will find them everywhere. So from that moment, I made a commitment, and I said, you know what? This is what I'm going to do from now on. I'm going to coach people like this, like him.
Okay.
And I started, doing that more and more. And it turns out that it became a niche, and it became my specialty.
Nice.
That is the genesis of that. What I have learned in the process is that a lot of time, 99% of people don't wake up in the morning and says, I'm going to be difficult today. I am going to be a bully today. We don't, majority of them don't, and I think that the biggest issue that I see is that their intentions don't translate into actions that reflect their intentions. And that's why I call it that are misunderstood, because most of them have great intention. They just don't know how to actually bring the, and I realize that happens to me so many times as well. I keep saying, oh, that's not what I meant. That's not what I meant. And what that realization is the fact that that our intentions doesn't translate into actions. And that's the genesis of my coaching, choosing to coach these individuals.
I love it. And I love that you shared that, and that it was a challenge for you to deal with that client, the aftermath of that. And that was one of the experiences shared that contributed to your development of resilience over time. You talk also about, the book is called Ordinary Resilience. So what do you mean by ordinary resilience?
I just struggle a lot of time, trying to find the right title for the book. And a little bit of background, when I was, thinking about, not even thinking about writing the book, I was at one point, just journaling. And the reason I was journaling, because people will tell me, oh my God, you have done so much. You're so resilient. You do this, you do that. And then I realized in my mind is that I haven't done anything different or special. I was just doing what it came natural to me. And in the book, I also share the story of my dad. My dad had a horrible accident, and then when he came back, he made a declaration, and he said, I am going to build a better business. I am going to send university, and blah, blah, blah. And he did it, despite of the fact that the issue that he was going through, which exactly happened to me. So I believe at the time that there wasn't anything special about me. And I believe that the key here is that you don't have, as I was reading and I was listening to people, and as I was, coaching people, I realized that we all have access to the same things. And resilience is something that is already ingrained in our DNA. We are the dominant species in this world, in this planet, because we are resilient. We have had a lot of adaptations through time that have made us the most resilient species in the world. So we already have it ingrained into our DNA. The same things that I have access to, everybody else has access to. That's what I call it, the ordinary. Resilience is not extraordinary. It's not reserved for people that achieve great things or for people that are undergoing brain tumors, but rather is for people that actually decide to make commit to make a choice and move forward with what they have.
Yeah, I appreciate that point in the book too. And Brett, I don't know if that resonated with you, but when we were talking ahead of time, I said that the brain tumor was informative and a big experience, but people need to be resilient for things much less significant than a brain tumor, as you share a lot of those examples as well.
Absolutely. And one thing that when I'm coaching people, like I said, we need to find a moment in time that we'll use as a springboard for the new person that you want to be. It can be anything. It can be absolutely anything. I'm going to share experience that I had with. I was teaching this class over at Stanford, as I said, and there was one particular student. I mean, she was a very accomplished executive. And she also had a foundation for inclusiveness, diversity and inclusion. And the inclusion was for her a big deal. I mean, it was a big deal. And so I got curious, and I asked her, can I ask you where is this passion for being so inclusive, or your passion to inclusivity comes from? And she said to me, Luis, I was I grew up in the Midwest. I'm the child of a white Christian family. Everybody looked the same in there. And then I moved to Chicago to go to college. So I went into a much more diverse group of people, and I was discriminated in college. People didn't, I was totally discriminated. And I was thinking in my head, is that it? That experience that you had that gave you rise to this amazing work that you're doing. And then I realized that the experience isn't as important as the journey that we take as a result of that moment that we have. So
that's so good.
We don't have, as I said, we don't have to have a brain tumor or go through a divorce. What we need to do is to find a moment in time that when you make a decision and a commitment to get better. And that's one of the things that when I coach people, I say, hey, listen, let's use this moment that you're going right now as a flexing point for you, as a reset time. And that's I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, that's so important. And I think people don't think about big thing you emphasize in here, building that muscle and practicing it and doing things on purpose to and to make you resilient, and go to McDonald's and ask for a free refill on a hamburger. Things like that you have to deal with. And what do they say? And, little things that you put yourself, so from the small to the bigger, but you set yourself up for these situations. So then when bigger ones happen, you're more capable of that too.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
Brett, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts so far?
Yeah, where my head was going while Luis was sharing there is when I spoke at Rockers. Remember my alumni speech, if you want to think of it that way. There's inflection points in your life, and we oftentimes don't recognize those in the moment. And then when we reflect back and we say, if in that moment I had two choices, the fork in the road, the classic analogy, and I chose one way, and obviously we don't know what would have happened had we chosen, the opposite. But those things happen throughout life. We don't recognize them, and then they ultimately define our journey. We're all relatively advanced in age, and so we've had those opportunities present themselves. The folks that are younger or even preteen, those types of things, they're going to face those things, and they've got to choose. And obviously, we expect that they choose wisely.
Yeah. But if you think about that, Brett, a lot of times we know what those moments are in the moment right now, back in the past. I remember when that happened. I remember when I was faced with a choice. And what I'm saying right now, what I'm trying to bring to the table is that you can make a decision right now and make this moment as the inflection point for you.
Absolutely.
Right? So one of the questions that I ask people, my people that are coaches, what is the one thing that you can do today? So 2 years from now, you can say that this crisis that you're going through right now is the best thing that happens to your career.
Yeah.
Because that becomes then a call of action. Okay, so now this is the point that I need to make an inflection. What can I do right now that will make a difference 2 years from now?
And I think that's what makes you resilient, is coming out the other side better.
Totally.
Not coming out the other side. So not just making it through. And you talk survive versus thrive, but being able to look back and say, I'm better now 2 years later than I was 2 years ago.
Exactly. The resilience a lot of times is a bouncing back. That is the definition. It's bouncing back. It's coming back to, from recovering from whatever you're doing.
Right.
And what I think that celebrates endurance, that celebrates survival. And I think that resilience for me is moving past that and going, adapting, how are you going to adapt to that? But the next step is thriving, is doing so much better, not despite of what you went through, but because of.
Yes. And that's the crux of why I wanted to share this book with people. Yes, I think that's a big deal in life. I think, and for leaders, how do you think that affects leaders that have to lead companies or lead other people?
I think that so a lot of times, we are afraid of making mistakes. We're afraid of failure. We're afraid of losing face. We're afraid of being embarrassed. And that fear doesn't allow us to sometimes to make decisions and take risks and to embrace our full capacity. So the one thing another thing that I think that reframe, and this is not mine, by the way, it's about reframing your failures as an opportunities to learn. What have you learned from this, and how can you move forward? Just because. So the other component of that, parallel to that, is a lot of times people. I have some individuals that equate the failure of a product with themselves as an identity. That product was not successful, therefore I am a failure because I am the sponsor, I am the founder, I am the owner. You see? And so one time I was talking to somebody and I said, who are you? Who are you? And we were talking, and then finally he said, I'm an entrepreneur. And I said, exactly. The product is not you. You're the entrepreneur. The product is happening because of you. If the product fails, you didn't fail. You learn something about that. Your identity stays exact and stays intact.
Yeah. How did they receive that?
It was an aha moment for him.
Good.
And it's like, oh, got it, and just 2 days ago, I had exactly the same conversation with somebody else as well, like that. It's like a lot of times what we need to do is assume an identity and come from that identity, because that's what resilient people do, say, I am true to myself, and this is who I am. And who I am is completely independent of my surroundings. My affected, but it's independent. And here is the way I, in the book I describe it. When I was going through my whole thing, I equate my identity with being a professor. I am a professor, I work at the university. My wife was proud of, of being married to a professor, all of those things. So I equate my identity with what I did. There was a moment where I couldn't do that anymore. So I felt like complete failure. My God, I am broken goods. I remember that. And it wasn't until I realized that person didn't exist anymore, that the person that I am now is different, tumor included. Then I realized that my identity shouldn't be tied to what I did. And then I decided, okay, so who am I? Who is Luis? And that's when I decided I'm going to call myself a resilient mofo. I'm a resilient mofo.
A resilient mofo. I love it.
And then, there are three things that I am passionate about. I am committed, I am persistent, and I am optimistic. And that is the identity that I can play anywhere.
And that formula that you talk about, that's in your book too. And the putting that to any kind of situation and figuring, but helps you reframe it so you can move forward and come out the other side. But not so many people get stuck, and it's hard to, you said you're ordinary, you don't have anything special, but I do think it's special to go through so many things and to continue going and see the other side and look forward to that other side, and to have that vision for on the horizon, that kind of thing. But not underestimating that. You talk in the book about it took you a while to come to terms with who you were now after the brain tumor.
I think that that identity didn't happen. Assuming that identity of being persistent, committed, and optimistic, that didn't happen overnight. I had to. It took over years to realize, oh, this is the person that I am. Yeah, this is the person that I am. So my goal is that my hope is that people can read the book and they say, who am I? And challenge themselves, who am I? And use that identity to apply on anything that they do. Like the client that I was working, as I mentioned yesterday, it's yesterday, and I had it here because I ran out of paper on my notebook. So I asked him, who are you, and what are the things that you do or you have done that made you to the person that you are today, to get you where you are today? And he mentioned, I am approachable, I am optimistic, I am inquisitive, I am focused on improvement, I am a relationship, all of those things. And I said, well, let's narrow that to three. What are the three things that resonate with you the most? And then he ended up saying, I am approachable, helpful, and inquisitive. And I said, great, do that. He said, that's who you are. So now go and do that with your team. Be inquisitive, be helpful, and be approachable. And that was an aha moment for him. A relationship, all of those things. And I said, well, let's narrow that to three. What are the three things that resonate with you the most?
What is that noise?
Ended up saying, I am. What happened? Something's happened.
I don't know.
I am approachable, helpful, and inquisitive. It seems like it's replaying something. He said, that's who you are.
That's
so
weird.
Now go and do that with your team.
Oh, I know what that is. I'm so sorry. Okay, I never have the volume on my phone ever. And I drove somewhere earlier and I knew my parents were going to call. So I had my phone on. So sorry, I just had it on in case somebody asked a question so that I could look at LinkedIn. So I'm so sorry. So I was looking on my screens, on my tabs to see what that was. So I apologize for that. But that passion in your explanation sure came through, huh? And
yeah, I just realized that I talk too fast, so I need to slow down.
oh, no, I was with you. I think all of that is right on. Brett, what are your thoughts? What are you thinking?
Well, the title of the book's Ordinary, and we're talking a lot about perspective and how two individuals can look at the same situation both very differently. And although we call it ordinary, that implies that everybody has that, right? But as we both know, I mean, this is the ordinary resilience and really that optimistic. I keyed on the two things that he talked about in the book, the scarcity mindset versus a mindset of abundance. And that's just not as common as we think. And you ask yourself, well, why isn't it? I mean, all the successful people, or for the most part, all the successful people have this mindset of abundance, right? There's more than enough, and we can make the pie bigger, so there's more of it to go around. But as you pointed out, the book obviously has an audience that resonates. I think much of what was in the book, it's about self-reflection, asking yourself and being self-aware, and then what type of a mindset do you have? How do you approach your day-to-day? Do you approach it with a mindset of abundance or a mindset of scarcity? And, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? And I guess the point I'm trying to make here, although the title's ordinary, it's just not simply as ordinary as we'd like it to be.
Yeah, not common, not as common. Yeah. And that exactly. You talked about in your book from 7 Habits from Stephen Covey. And I've had this book since it came out. It's all beat up and torn up. So my copy I've had forever. Okay, those are the only books I have handy.
Brett, I mean, I think that, the mindset of abundance and the mindset of scarcity is a learned behavior, the way I see it. It's a learned behavior. And I can tell you, I mean, I grew up in poverty, as I said, and my parents are savers. My grandfather was a saver. And I myself, I'm a saver, like I'm going to save money. I'll save money because I feel I need to save for the future. And that wasn't serving me well, because to your point, I was trying to, to contain rather than to see what else is there and share the wealth. And it wasn't until one moment when, at that time, when I was mentioning that I lost that particular client, and I came home and I told my wife about it. I was giving away 40% of my income at that moment. So I told her, listen, we need to tie our belts because 40% less of what I meant. And she said to me, Luis, you got it wrong. You got it wrong. It's not about tying our belts. It's to figure out how you can make more money. And I think that reframe reset my idea as to what I need. Instead of saving, go get some more. Mm-hmm. Moving forward, when the pandemic started, I had 2 proposals for coaching at 2 different companies, and then the pandemic hit, and one company told me, listen, you're gonna put a hold on that. We're not gonna do anything right now until this crisis has passed. The other one said, wow, we need this right now. This is what we need.
Yeah.
So you can see, the difference. And then I realized, holy cow, this happens at the organizational level too. Is the idea that we need to conserve as opposed to we need to deploy and adapt. And that's what the was doing. So to your point, Brett, absolutely. But I think that is a learned behavior that unless you come to Jesus of realization, like I did with my wife at that moment, and then you realize, oh, there is another way of things. Look at this. And that's what I hope that the book will actually do, is to reframe things in the way that unlock different possibilities.
And you do give people questions to think about in a situation. So you don't just say, reframe it and go sing a zippity doo dah. You give specific questions to help people to reframe it and think through. What are some other tips that you would have to help leaders develop resilience and to build that muscle?
So there are many different things in here. I think that resilience is labeled as to, there are so many things that you can do. And where I'm coming from is not that you need to do those things to be resilient, but rather you need to be intentional about being resilient. And what I mean by being intentional is take steps to put yourself out of a comfort zone. To what Brett said earlier, is that if you step out of your comfort zone a little bit every day, when the big thing happens, you're gonna be ready.
Yeah.
You know, so and you know, I'm a runner. You know, I love to run, and in the running component, you know, like sometimes we say, "Oh, I don't want to run because it's painful." And I say, it's not painful. It might be uncomfortable, but it's not painful. You know, and now if it is painful, that's a different conversation. You know,
right. You need to take care of that.
And I think that we as humans, we tend to we tend to solve for comfort. We want things easy. We want things, you know, faster. And I think that doesn't build resilience, but that builds dependency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the one thing that I tell my clients is that when they say, is this painful? I say, is it painful or is it uncomfortable? Is it talking to your boss that is a bully? Is it painful or is it uncomfortable? If it is painful, then don't do it, you know. But if it's just uncomfortable, go do it. So it's just go after what is uncomfortable, because that's where growth happens. And that's how resilience is built. Resilience is say, you have to meditate. I have never met somebody that meditate out of a crisis.
Right.
There is so many other things that you can do in addition to.
Yes.
But I think that the key here is identify what you're capable of, and then reach to that. And then what else can you do? And then that's how you build resilience.
Mm-hmm. I thought of you over the weekend when I read your book when it very first came, and my Amazon thing had it purchased on June 24th, the day before it came out. And so I read it then, but then as I mentioned, I went through it over the weekend in preparation of today and over the last few days. But I was dog sitting for my niece in Lawrence, Kansas. And so I took longer walks, and I challenged myself to take this extra hill that is in our neighborhood. And I thought of you, and I cursed your name a little bit in doing that, but I thought of like challenge myself on purpose.
And that is the key. If you remember, you know, I mean, I learned a lot from David Peterson. And one of the things that he mentioned is that he said, you know, I do something different every day.
Yeah.
You know, I do something different every day. And to me, that is something that I have taken to heart, and I've done that. I wish I could do it every day, but I'm intentionally doing things, you know, like as often as I can, because that builds my overall resilience. And when we're talking about resilience, mental resilience, social resilience, psychological resilience, and social resilience, you know. So
And
having just met you though, and not knowing you, I expect you're a person of a lot of positive habits. I don't know, you haven't really used that word habit, but just reading the book, and I feel like I know you a little bit just from the book. I expect that you're a person who has a routine, and you have a lot of positive habits.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah. I'm intentional about, and I don't want to, routines for me are magical, but I don't call them routines. I call it rituals, because a routine becomes mindless. You know, like if you do something, you brush your teeth, you don't need to think about it anymore when you brush your teeth. That is a routine. You know, a ritual is something that I do, that intentionally go do it, and I reflect back on that.
I like that change. I like that wording.
Yeah.
And the being intentional about how you live your life. And you talk in there about fulfillment, which is another one of my words, and some work that I've done some work around creating your fulfilling life. And it ties in with some of the steps that you talk about in your book as well. What's the main point, or we're almost at our time, but what are you hoping that people take away from this the most? How do you hope people's lives are different from the book?
My hope is that when people read the book, they realize that there are other ways of seeing things. Yeah. My hope is that when people read the book, they realize that they already have everything that they need to take the first bold step.
Nice.
And my hope is that when people read the book, they realize that it is much easier to find fulfillment than what we thought it is. Because, it's about finding coherence in what we do, finding significance in what we do, and having a purpose. And I think that, if we dig deep, we'll find those three things, and that will bring fulfillment. And the rest is easy.
Yeah. So good. So good.
I don't recall if you use the word hope in the book or not, but there's a certain level of hope there. And in business, I had a leader at one point. We don't use the word hope. We plan and we execute. But I think it's human nature that we all need a little bit of hope. We all need a little bit of the ability to see the light at the end of the tunnel and then run towards that light. And I think that there's a theme that's maybe woven into the tapestry of the book, that there's a certain value and there's a certain need in all of us to have hope.
I really appreciate that you see it that way, Brett, because that was one of the things that was my hope that happened. And I think that, we hope is so emotionally moving to people. At least for me, hope is like, and I call, to tell you the truth, in my formula, I was thinking about hope instead of optimism.
Well, I think the other part too is we all need inspiration, and I think people draw inspiration from different things.
Yep.
And you share your journey, you share your story. I thought you were very, very transparent, very candid, very vulnerable in the book, because you shared some very, very personal experiences in all different facets of your life. And as a reader, not knowing you until we were having this conversation, obviously, you say, well, you know what, my life just isn't so bad. I mean, look at what Luis went through, and look at where he is today, and look what he's accomplished. And I think it's just human nature for us always to be benchmarking and comparing ourselves to others and say, well, if Luis can do it, or Luis can do it, we certainly can too. I certainly can too. So, that's that degree of hope and inspiration that I think we should all take as readers of the book.
Nice.
Okay.
Luis, who did you help today? We've had a conversation about that. I don't know if you remember that one I think we maybe had an email or something about that.
I don't recall, but I had a brain tumor. What is your excuse?
Yeah. We don't get to say that anymore. That's been 10 years, right? 9 or 10 years, or a longer time than that. Yeah, you don't get to say that anymore.
No.
Who did you help today? That's a question he asks his kids every day.
Yes, I do, and that is so I have to figure out that, because I have to answer that question to my children in the afternoon. That's the question that I ask every day when I pick them up: is who did you help today? Who did you help today? And I had a couple of good coaching conversations today, and I hope that those were helpful. But I also think, and I hope that this conversation that we had, somebody needs to hear something and take something away that will actually make take a aha moment or make a small change that will simplify or if I make them laugh, then I know that that was helpful. Yeah.
And there are laughs in the book too. But I was gonna, if you didn't have an answer, I was gonna tell you did help us today, and you will help the viewers and those who have joined live. But also we have more that will watch the video after on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So you definitely will help people. And I think one of the most important things is that you make resilience possible, that you make it accessible to people, and give specific ways to build that, and they're not hard. Hence ordinary, but you have to do them. You have to take the steps and be consistent.
I think that the key is being intentional about the way we live. And then if you if we bring intentionality in our lives, our resilience is an outcome of our intention.
Right. Yes. And I think for leaders, if you're leading a company, leading a team, leading other people, they need you to be resilient. So take this up for yourself and for the other people that are around. Somebody sets the tone in any of a crisis or any kind of big change that's happening. So if you have your act together, then you'll be able to lead other people better. And this book will help you do that.
Awesome.
So we always ask we talk at the end. So Bret, would you recommend this book to people? And if so, who would you recommend it to?
Yeah, I'd recommend it to anybody. I always look at the books. Was it an easy read? Could I apply it in my own life? Were there solid takeaways? And obviously, did the message and the theme come through? And thumbs up for me. I would definitely recommend this one.
Yeah, same for me. Thumbs up. And so I'm going to put the link up again. So anybody watching, you can go to the website, velazcoaching.com, to learn more about Luis. And the book is on there on the website as well. And it is also on Amazon, where a review would be appreciated. And the authors do the buzz that the review creates in the algorithms of Amazon are really appreciated. So if you have the book or you read the book or get the book after this and read it, please do consider putting a review in for Luis's book. And thank you, Luis, so much for joining us today. We really appreciate you for the book, for sharing with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, Kelly, before we go, I was talking to somebody this month and they were asking me, hey, if I can't make the conversation, if I can't make the 4 o'clock on Thursday, how can I view it? And I said, it's posted on YouTube. So for everybody's benefit, can you share with us how we get to the recording on YouTube?
Yep, it is. You can find out more about that on the website of voyagecg.com/leadership books. And all 30 other ones, this is number 31, all 30 of them are linked there to the YouTube. And then they're on, I think it's on the Kelly Byrnes LinkedIn as well, but they're on YouTube over there. So
excellent. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah, thank you too. And I'll put that link in the comments on when this is posted live on LinkedIn. And our next one that we have booked is in October, and the book is Clarity, Business Wisdom to Work Less and Achieve More by Jim Velazopoulos. And he is I know, we have to get somebody, Mark Smith or something next time. I was on his podcast a couple months ago and talking about leadership, and I had read his book prior to that as well. So fantastic book. And I'll post about that again. And we haven't picked one for September. So Bret and I will get our heads together. Again, we give a shout out and wish Dave Lingerfeld all the best in his doctorate. And we appreciate his support and participation in the past few years. And if you all have comments or questions, you're welcome to reach out to Luis. Here's the website again, and also through the LinkedIn comments that you'll see here. And that is it for us. So we thank you so much, Luis, and we thank everybody for watching. And we will see you all soon. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.